Hi guys, welcome to another episode on the No Beef Podcast. You know how we do it. I'm your host, BOBZ, Bob's with the most. So, another special guest on today. You know how we do it. I don't introduce them. So today, the special guest, can you introduce yourself, please?
I'm Kevin Brown. I am a youth worker, charity founder based in Wester Hailes. So I grew up in the same area as Bobby. So I remember Bobby from when he was probably about 8 or something, walking, or 9, whatever age you were, walking about with your goalie gloves at Dunbriden School when we had the games.
Yep.
Many years ago. So as I say, we working with young people in the area, we try to do work around, topical issues like racism, like bullying, like drugs and alcohol, and really just give young people a place to explore issues, as well as doing all the fun stuff, playing pool and cooking and everything. We do try and do our topical side of things as well, and let young people explore, issues like racism. West is an area with, many different races and many different cultures. We always try and promote that, and as I say, just let young people kind of explore those topics in a safe way.
Thanks for that, Kev. So, Kev, let's talk about it. You know what the No Beef Podcast is about. Talk about racism, prejudice, systematic racism. You're a white male, okay? So this is going to be a very powerful conversation. And I'm glad that the people that are listening and watching that, me and Kev do know each other from way, way back. We're talking 1998. So we grew up in the same area, so we've seen the same things. We know the same people. We're not naive. However, today, Kev's going to give us our thoughts. So what is your thoughts on racism?
Well, I definitely know it exists. Obviously, some people are somehow pretending that it doesn't exist at the moment. I obviously, in terms of, the simple stuff like those casual racist comments, I see those chats and on Twitter and on Facebook a lot. In terms of structural racism, I've been kind of doing a bit more research on that recently.
Okay.
I think, life does catch up on you, and you just, doing a wee bit more reading up on that, and how, really interesting things, such as, studies that have been done where CVs or applications have been put in for the same job, one with a British sounding name and one with like an African sounding name, and the British sounding name got more interviews, and really and things like that, that again, I wouldn't, in this day and age, as a white male, I guess I was just naive to in this, that was happening to. So I think it is a lot of subconscious stuff, but there is also a lot of conscious racism today as well. Looking at America, I think Britain is far from innocent, our history, and we've all got to acknowledge that in terms of where a lot of our wealth came from, in terms of imperialism and slavery and everything like that, and historical. But so I think when people talk about being against immigration and people coming to take our jobs and things, I think this is where education comes in, and it would be really helpful in schools and beyond schools to really look at where the wealth in this country came from, and then then maybe people would be a little bit less resistant to people from elsewhere in the world, especially countries that helped create our wealth. So I would say people from countries that help create our wealth are as welcome to come here and share in the economic opportunities than people that were just happened to be born here.
Exactly, I agree with you on that, because Wester Hailes was it grew into being a multicultural place, and we had a famous shop called Michael's, where probably every Tom, Dick and Mohammed went there to buy their Snickers, their juice, crisps, milk, whatever, bread and stuff. And we had the Chinese just over the bridge. I think it was
still my favourite Chinese in the world.
Exactly. And so we had an Asian culture and we had a Chinese culture growing up, where no one would think twice to go there if they wanted the Chinese. And with the food that Michael offered, we wouldn't think twice of going there. So we did grow up in a diverse neighbourhood, but we're also not naive because we do know racism does exist. You know, it's good that you said that. Also, you're educating yourself, you're learning, and you're trying to understand and also see it from a different point of view. Because obviously, being a white male, there's a very zero chance someone's going to call you a white bastard or a white so-and-so, you know, or a whitey, you know. But there's 100% chance that I would be racially profiled by being called a black bastard and so on and so on. So I think the fact that we're both having this conversation and you're saying to me, Bobby, you know, I'm having to learn and educate myself. It's very powerful because in obviously your employment, your profession, you're looked up to, you know, you're a role model. People come to you for help, emotional support, physical support, and so on. So, you know, you've got this aura and stature about you where, you know, you need to be in a position where you can help people grow and mature. And it's so moving to hear that you say that even to this day, I'm still helping myself mature. And I think people that are watching this need to learn that, you know, every day is a school day. We're always learning. I'm learning, you know, by doing this podcast. I'm learning by the information that I'm reading. I'm learning by the conversations that I'm having. We've grown up in Wester Hills. And let's not just say Wester Hills, let's say Edinburgh, okay?
Yeah.
We are friends with loads of different views, from food, music, football teams, racial thoughts of what they think, of how they describe certain places, certain shops, certain takeaways. For you, and I'm not saying before the George Floyd, before you knew anything about black people fighting for equality, what was it like growing up, knowing that certain people you hung out with or know are racist or have racial views?
Yeah, I mean, I've told you this previously, but I remember just go back to being maybe, you know, again, roughly 4 years old, I'm going to say, and seeing what I remember being, I mean, I'm sure as even younger child, but I remember seeing what I remember being my first black person, and, you know, walking along the road, and as I say, I must have stared a little bit, and my mum took her time to really explain to me, and you know, that everybody's the same, you know, doesn't matter skin. And, you know, she spent a lot of time kind of talking over with it. So I remember being very young and always having that, you know, very much in the mindset, even as a child, that everybody's the same. I had Asian friends, I had black friends, I had much more white friends, don't get me wrong. But so I was always quite soft-hearted as well, so I was always, you know, very caring. So in terms of me, I never really remember like really acknowledging race, and I'll come back to that because there's a lot that I've been reading about in terms of colour blindness, as they call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely growing up with a lot of our friends, and you know, their name for the local Chinese and the local Asian and everything like that, and you know, I remember being a very young age and not following everybody else and stopping using those names for the shops, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's still, those terms are still used today by, you know, people. Some people we grew up with, a lot of people have grown out of that, and they know.
Agreed. You know, have changed.
But there is still a few that are rough as tatties that still, you know, are still definitely using those terms, and I think it is a bit of naiveness, rather than coming from a bad place, and in most cases, not all cases, there is definitely some people that we grew up with that I would class as racist. But I would say the majority, it's more of a naiveness, and I think that's where schools, again, education comes in, because then if everybody knows exactly why these are offensive, and I think even to this day, a lot of people that are 30, 40 years old, you know, that and even older do not know exactly why those terms are offensive. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
so education and rather than judgment, that's always the way that I've kind of worked my thing. If I explain to somebody why something's offensive, then they continue to use that, then I think that's where the judgment can come in.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so no, yeah, it's prevalent. I mean, it's a lot of casual racism. To be honest, I can't remember particular cases of actual, you know, I mean, anybody being assaulted for, you know, being...
Yeah, for the colour of their skin.
Yeah, anything like that. But certainly, yeah, I mean, certainly a lot of casual racism, almost on like a daily...
Basis.
On a daily basis, yeah, definitely.
And do you think, like, as you were saying, you know, obviously, if you explain to someone, also being in your position, you're explaining to someone why this is wrong, and they carry on still doing it. Do you think it's obviously it's judgment, but do you also think it's a massive ignorance because I'm white, I don't have to adhere to what's right and wrong because systematically I know nothing's really going to happen to me anyway. Do you know?
100%, 100%.
And that is quite scary and alarming because if people do still think like that, then I'm alarmed because if you know as an adult you can't use that language or speak to someone like that, but you still choose to, then I'm alarmed because then I'm threatened because you still see me as beneath you. Now, individually, is it their fault? Yes. Historically, is it? No, because that is what they're taught. That is what they see on an everyday occurrence. So it becomes a norm to them. But as we get older, we know right from wrong, you know? And I feel like education and obviously the powers that be have to be very, very, have a zero tolerance to this because, you know, you can't say these things. Me and you can't say these things, regardless, you know? I can't be racist, you can't be racist. And being a white male, have you ever had any racist experience towards yourself being a white male?
Not at all. I mean, that's a simple one. I had to think about that one, and yeah, I mean, nothing in terms of obviously, and I think this is where I'm kind of going off the side here. So the answer to that question is definitely no. And I'm interested, obviously, growing up in the same area because I guess I've never, which is strange, never actually asked you about kind of your experiences growing up in the area. But to go off on the side a little bit is obviously being a white male. We've got coming from Wester Hailes, so we have challenges even being a white male in terms of coming from a poorer community. We have barriers, and I think this is where people misinterpret the Black Lives Matters and All Lives Matters, and where a lot of the frustration comes from. Because of course, and you'll agree as well, of course, all lives matter equally.
100%, yeah.
But and this is where I think people that are getting wound up by Black Lives Matter are misinterpreting it. It's like, you know, I know we've used the house on fire analogy.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
If there's two of you in the hospital and one of you is sick and one of you is not, then the doctor is going to attend to, you know, the one that's the same kind of thing.
Exactly.
That's what it is. There's been a lot. I mean, Breonna Taylor in America, obviously, being shot dead by the police. There was the black guy who was out running, and those two, I think it was a father and son who had mistaken him for another.
They lynched him. Let's say
lynched
what
him in the middle of the street. There was the Asian girl who was bullied. Was it just over a year ago? Was around Manchester maybe?
Yep.
And she was kind of bullied into going into the water and ended up drowning by all everybody. So I mean, there's enough cases. I mean, America's a different world almost. Like, I know it's still the Western world and everything, but I just think, I mean, I think
we're not. I know what you're trying to say, Kev. What you're trying to say is that in Scotland, in the UK, yes, we do have racism and it is a problem. We could say, fortunately, is that the right word? Fortunately, that we don't have numerous black people dying all the time. You know,
I mean,
maybe
guns.
that's what you're trying to say. That, you know, I don't know if there's a correct word. We're not mirrored to be like America, and a majority of black people will say that we're fortunate to live here, because in America, you know, we both seen the news. We both know what's going on. You know, everyone knows
Crazy.
what's going on. We know that a man with my skin color is a problem for the police. You know, might not be doing anything at all, but I'm still considered as suspicious, potential robbery and stuff like that. You know, however, in Scotland, it could be a different level of, let's say, hostility.
Mhm.
Okay, but I'm still the black guy, you know, so I'm still seen as the black individual. And for some police officers or some people of authority, I'll still be seen as a problem. Um, of my experience, to flip it on, growing up in Wester Hailes, man, oh, bro, I remember came from London, so I had my English accent at the time. You know, I was getting called.
The odds were stacked against you.
Exactly. So, you know, like black, Catholic, I had the London accent. It was tough, man. It was tough. And fortunately, because I played football, it took the heat off.
I was going to suggest that you were not just played football, but you're a talented footballer. So
Thank you very
that's
much.
a certain level of esteem.
But that's the thing, it
But
took the heat off. Or he's black, or he's Catholic. You know, I know many people in West Wales that call me an English CUNT. There's many people that at our primary school, or even at my secondary school, that called me a packy, or called me a black bastard. Do you know what I mean? But yet, they wanted to be on my football team when we played football at Dummy. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, you know, when it suited them, I was their friend. When it didn't, do you know what I mean? I was the ethnic. And man, it hurt every day, bro. Like, sometimes I'd see it and I'd be like, wow, really? But then I used to get in fights all the time, you know, because you can't say that to me. So I'd punch them, I'd beat them up. But then I'd get in trouble. You know, I'd be the one, I'd be the aggressive one, or I'd be the problematic. You know, do you know what it's like to be racially abused, and then for police to say to you, toughen up, stop being emotional? I'm bloody 11, 12 years old, bro. Like, what do you mean? Like, but you won't say anything to them because I'm the one that beat them up. They're hurt, they're the victim. But yet, we were not rewind to how the problem started. I've had it in football teams when I've played a high level. When I played for Raith Rovers, they saw that I was big and strong, so they put me up front, hold the ball up. But technically, I was good on the ball. And bear in mind, I went from a keeper to playing outfield, you know. So I got all the time. He's strong, he's powerful, put him up front. Why couldn't I be technical? Why couldn't I be interchanging? Why can't I be shown that, oh yeah, he's got agility and stuff like that? Why did it have to be big and strong? So, you know,
Yeah.
these guys that are coaching me, they don't see that. They just see this big guy and think, oh yeah, put him up there. When actually, that is systematic racism, because they've already put me in a category. That's all he can do. Do you know what I'm saying? And it was tough, man. Like, it was very tough. And, you know, obviously, even like in the playgrounds, secondary school, even some teachers, and like sometimes you got to an age when I was like 14, 15, that's just how it is, you know? And I say to all the young black boys growing up, the young black girls growing up, that isn't the case. It shouldn't be like that. And do not accept that, because every man and woman in this world, no matter what race you are, don't deserve to be treated like that. But then, you know, as you get older, your white friends start to stick up for you, you know, they start to call out other races, like, what you doing, blah, blah, blah. Then, you know, you start to feel more comfortable around more white people, and then obviously they become your friends. And then obviously you start to hang out with different people because you know they don't like your kind. Do you know what I mean? And to go back to a tweet, I know I messaged you ages ago when all this BLM happened and racism and stuff was coming up. I read a tweet, right, before I deleted Twitter. It said, most of your white friends don't like black people. They just like you. And bro, that cuts so deep from what I saw. And obviously the incident I was telling you about, like, they still see Asian people as Pakis. They still see black people as black bastards. But me, they see me as Bobby because I'm their friend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, I was just like, whoa, like, wow. And I've seen it all on social media. I've seen it, people that I grew up with, I'm like, whoa, really? So when we were playing football in Dummy Field, what did you think of me? do you know what I mean? Do you know what
That's crazy when you put it like that, yeah.
It's tough, mate. It's tough. And that's what I think. When you were saying about growing up in West Wales and stuff, bro, let's be honest, man. When people put in a CV, you didn't put West Wales, you put either Moneyburn or Westbourne. Do you know what I mean? Because you didn't want to be categorised or stereotyped. Then imagine when they get the two CVs, Kevin Brown, Bobby Nwanze. Do you know what I mean? We know that systematically, Kevin Brown is probably more likely to be called back or get a reply or a response. Bobby Nwanze isn't. And I've had that done to me before, where I've applied for a job, same CV, two different names. And the alias name got the call back. Crazy, right? But it happens, And I know normally this is the chat where I'm asking you and stuff, but do you have anything you want to ask me?
No, I just a quick comment, and there is a couple of things I want to ask you on more about how we move forward, because but quickly, that's when I was talking about the whole lives matter and how people are struggling to get over that. What they're not realising is, even coming from, poorer, disadvantaged areas or whatever your background is, whatever, and I think that's where hearing like white privilege puts people's backs up, especially like if they're coming from a life that hasn't been that smooth. Like generally people from, poorer and working class areas, they hear white privilege and then again, it's I think a misunderstanding of what it means.
Definitely. They take offence. You know what I mean?
They take offence because when you hear privilege, when you've grown up in an area sort of riddled with, poverty and drug abuse and, benefits.
Do you know what I mean? Violence.
Violence, worklessness, all of that. So when you hear privilege, you're like, your back doesn't, and again, I don't agree with it, but I can understand why.
Definitely. But then that means that the individual should then be, what do you mean white privilege? Not, I'm not privileged. Ask the question. What do you mean?
Ask the question, exactly.
You know what I mean?
And what they've got to realise is all those all those barriers, all those disadvantages, all those experiences, black people are having the exact same experience, then they've got race on top of that.
Exactly.
That's what it is. And it's just, again, I think we've got to put our hands up and say sometimes we've got to make sure that our message is clearer, because I do think some of the terminology could be better that's been used. I do think that there's a lot of criticism coming off the BLM movement because it's kind of been maybe over politicized in other areas rather than just itself. So it's kind of there's a lot of stuff around that we need to be careful about, because then you'll end up with divisions within, and even because if you turn, I'm a lefty politically, but if you become I'm not an extreme lefty, I'm certainly a fair bit over, but not quite extreme lefty. But if you become an extreme left-wing political movement, when you're you're there to fight for racial equality, then you're leaving out a whole lot of people. And I think that's playing devil's advocate and being critical. That's kind of been a trend over the last couple of weeks that it looks like it's been moving. So I just think it will end up becoming counterproductive if the balance isn't structured.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Like, you mean Black Lives Matter? BLM is not anti-white. Do you know what I mean? It's not anti every race. No. It's a very simple message. We want to be treated equally. Enough is enough. And there are extreme left views, and personally, I don't agree with them. I agree with all races, especially the black race, should be treated equally.
Definitely.
And to be considered and acknowledged. That's all it is. We don't want to be harassed. We don't want to be discriminated against, stereotyped or anything. And you are right. Unfortunately, there are people that have very extreme views, right and left, and that's where I feel like the media are having fun because they're enjoying creating a split and clickbait articles, where people just go and read the first paragraph and then boom, oh, BLM or this, BLM or that, or far right or this, far right or that. Listen, we live in a world where racism exists. We live in a world where it was only a few decades ago that women weren't allowed to sit in boards, women weren't allowed to have certain jobs. So regarding racism, there's problems within the whole world. There's the fight against the elderly. There's the LGBT fight. There's disability fight. Trans. Do you know what I mean? There's so many fights happening where like we all just want to be treated equally. My annoyance is just that I don't understand why it's a debate or why there's anti people being like, no, no, no. And you know what? Let's go back to the white privilege. I'm glad you mentioned it. White privilege is not having to think about, when I go on holiday, I Google racism in certain countries. You don't have to have that process, when I go into a shop and think, oh, they've not got what I want, so I walk out slowly with my hands in view. You don't have to work that problem, Privilege is shouting abuse at police, knowing they're just going to accept it. And in fact, let me be on the fence of that, because some policemen don't take rubbish, okay? But my point is that some white people wouldn't hesitate to abuse the police. For me, I'm thinking, I don't want to get arrested, so I'm not saying a thing. So I mean, it's not saying, because everyone goes through their own struggle. Everyone has their own walk in life where they went through their own struggle. And I know people at West Hills that have struggled, and done really, really good for themselves. So we get that. And I get when they see privilege, like, oh, I'm not privileged. No. What we're saying is that if we were to go to an airport, especially around a certain sensitive time, I'm more likely to be searched than you are. And do you know what, talking about that, I went from London to Edinburgh, a very simple trip, from Stansted to Edinburgh Airport. I was with my wife. Do you know there was 50 people in this queue putting our stuff in for the security stuff? I was the only one black person. I was the only person to be asked to stand at the queue to be searched. Now, listen to this. My wife stood in front of the guy and went, excuse me, why are you searching him? Oh, it's a random search. So she said, of all the people in this queue, my husband is the random search. She went, yeah. And do you know, God bless her, other people turned around and says, well, you might as well search me because this is random. And a guy who had a big beard was like, well, I must need a search because I must look random. But I was the only guy to get, do you know what I mean? I was the only person to get searched. Now,
that's powerful though, the people
that stood up, do you know what I mean? They don't know me. They don't know me from Adam, do you know what I mean? But they saw what was happening and they all said to me, I'm so sorry you have to go through that. And I said to them, right, do you know, I expect this every time I travel. And this is what we're trying to say of white privilege. Do you know, like, it's absurd for you to think of, why would I get searched? Why would you want to search me? Do you know what I mean? I've got another question for you. So let me get it for you on my notes. Growing in Wester Hills, okay, and education. Let's say education all across the board. If you were in charge of Edinburgh, Scotland right now, how would you change for racism and black history to be educated in schools, workplaces, and so on?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think schools is where, obviously, I mean, I definitely think we need to do more in schools. And I think you learn about history, but you learn about, the World War, but you don't learn about so much about, all the different countries and races actually contributed and fought under the British Empire, your people from like the Caribbean or Caribbean, whatever you want to say, is in, the obviously the Sikh population, Sikh people who obviously made a big contribution to the war as well, and a lot of people moved over here. So without that education, people might, the Sikh people are a perfect example. Like I'm again not quite sure in numbers, but there's a huge amount of Sikh people that fought in the war.
Of course, but we're not taught that.
And as I say, so you learn about the war, but you learn about the battles. You don't really learn about everything that goes around that. And I think simple things like that would be the first step to, people not being seen as like, there's probably Sikh people that are maybe third generation now. Or I don't know, again, not great being mad, but
it's true. Yeah, it's true.
That'll be getting called immigrants, at this stage, and by ignorant people. So yeah, in schools we've got to do much, much more and commit to really opening up about Britain and Scotland's history and our role in slavery. Let's not pretend it didn't happen. Good old liberal kind of Britain.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's acknowledge that it happened. Let's, instead of tearing down statues of, people who were involved in slave trade or were racist, let's take them, and I don't agree they should be in the middle of Princes Street and everything. Let's take those and put them in a museum that, people can go to and again learn about the mistakes of the past. Because a lot of people, don't get me wrong, when it comes to slavery, there's no, oh, you were a product of your environment.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. And there's no middle ground or grey area there.
Mm-hmm.
What year you were born in. If you're going to traffic people and own people, like that, then you're some kind of messed up person.
Exactly.
But there's other people that would be, again, can be called racist. Again, I don't know about history about a lot of these things, but the statues are getting pulled down. If they've done something wrong, they shouldn't have their statue in a place where they could be considered a hero or whatever, But let's take that learning and that history and put it into places where people can learn, like museums, so we can learn from the past instead of pretending it didn't happen.
Yes.
Let's take all of that and put it in there and learn from the past. Like I say, so yeah, really just basic but committed and deep education in schools, in youth clubs, and everything like that. And then obviously one of the things I was interested in, I was telling you, I was reading the book Why I No Longer Talk to White People About Race.
Yeah.
And I forget the author. It was a black person, female black activist, and she was talking about how in America there was never any black American football coaches, or there was very few. Like the representation was very low anyway, and then they made the commitment to interviewing at least one black person.
Rooney Rule, yeah.
With every job that came up, and then obviously they weren't guaranteed the job. Actually, just being able to get in the room and have a conversation totally has changed the representation. So there's a lot of discussions there, because again, I'm lukewarm to the whole positive discrimination thing. I'm like, and that might be because I'm a white male, but I do think at least there's got to be some, and I do think people, there's obviously an awareness of it now, but I do think, we need to be representative. I know the Scottish Parliament, I believe, has not got one black person. You obviously have,
you
have Asian people in there, but yeah, that blew my mind when I heard that. That was great. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. And we've got to commit to doing it. My fear is just that I can understand why people are angry, and it's easy for me to say as a white male as well. And that's, I've got to analyse that myself, but I don't ever feel that. I know people disagree as well that have similar political views to me, but I never feel that violence takes you to the place you've got to be. And sometimes in history that's been proved wrong.
This is the thing. This is the thing. And like, do you know what? We both don't condone violence. No, I'm not saying to the next one, yeah, go do this. No. History tells us that when the peace talks didn't work, they got violent. Then they made movements, they made changes. Now, I'm not saying Black Lives Matter should go and burn the city down or anything like that. No. Martin Luther King was a peaceful guy. Do you know what I mean? He went about his business very peacefully, and look what happened to him. Okay, now, regarding that, I think that we need to have the conversations. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, but also we can't have the conversations where it's a white woman and a white man. Because they're just going to go off statistics. They're going to go off facts. Get some people of color in there. Do you know what I mean? Like, get them in there. Ask them, what do you think of this? How has this affected you? What do you think we could do? Because it's only then we can have the people of color represented. Then the white people, and I say the white people like as their thing, but as in white people in powerful positions can sit up and be like, well, no, we have to change this thing. Do you understand? The parliament blows my mind. It shocks me, to be honest, when I found out, and I was just thinking, wow. So then there you go. It can start from the top, it can start from the bottom, but where do black people go? Who can they be like, oh, do you know what? I can relate to that politician. He grew up just like me. Well, no, he didn't, or she didn't. Do you know what I mean? You can.
That's a white privilege thing again. Like growing up, when your politicians and leaders of the country are white, majority, like obviously like cartoon characters even are white or yellow in the Simpsons. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And wherever you go, it's white. You know, you're growing up around white. Well, and then as a black person, the one that really got me and made me reflect was watching a episode of Shark Tank, the American version of Dragon's Den, and this a black couple went in with their daughter, and then they had made this black doll, and they said the reason that they done that is because our daughter, who was like 4 at the time, was crying because she wasn't white and didn't have blonde hair.
Imagine.
Because Hinky Barbie and like the majority of the dolls, and again, as a white person, without being funny, that's not really something that I'd ever really embarrassingly never really crossed my mind before. So that's I think another example of just being able to, like, the difference growing up, as a white person in a country that's majority, like largely majority white, not just majority white, but overwhelmingly majority white, versus being a black person, and also growing up in the same country. So it's I'm still learning. I've sort of made a bigger commitment to myself to really. One thing I would say, is that, like, I noticed myself as kind of being a lefty, that I think in the past I sort of clustered together with everybody else, and like, oh, they're a lefty, so I'm
with them.
I've got to have the same view as them. So I think that's the only thing now that, like, I'm really conscious of. Obviously, when it comes to race, I take everything, if a black person tells me this is their experiences, and obviously, like, I didn't think twice about that. I accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
In terms of the next step, how we achieve equality, I still don't know that yet. It'd be interesting to hear your views on how we actually get there. But yeah, that's the only thing, just self-reflecting, is I'm quite resistant just to jump on any kind of bandwagon. It doesn't matter what the bandwagon is, because I feel like I've done that in the past and then just ended up agreeing with people because I'm part of that. I'm part of that ideology, So
and that's what I was saying to you about the media. They will spin it how they want for it to be left against right, or black against white. Let's see what it is. Okay, clickbait. You click on it, you read the first paragraph, boom. Do you understand? No, what you're doing is brilliant, because at the end of the day, you as an individual is like, okay, do you know what? Let's find out what they're talking about. Let's see why they're annoyed. or offended. Let's see if they actually have a point. Now, let's go back to the statues. All these people saying it shouldn't come down, shouldn't come down. Now, how many people actually go to these statues and stand and take a picture and put up statuses or whatever, pictures be like, I am beside so-and-so. This guy was so-and-so. In my experience, zero, okay?
Never seen it in my life.
Zero, okay? Now, all of a sudden, there is a want to bring them down, okay? And do you know what? If there was a racist, this is what I say to people. If I stole your child, sold them off to someone for labour, where would you put my statue? That's how I put it on them. Do you know what I mean? And your face there, you're like, well, actually, do you know what I mean? Now, yes, we can put them in the museums, but I say to you this, the same people that want them kept up, do they even go to museums? Now, I might be saying that they don't. I'm not calling them they're not intellectual or smart, but I'm asking you, do you physically say, I'm going to the museum today because I want to see this statue? Do you know what I mean? So I think if they come down, put them in the museum, be like, this person here was a slave master. He stole children, black children, and he sold them off to people. Okay? Period. Keep it at that. Now, then you tell me if you want to salute this person. Do you know what I mean? Then
that's what it should be used for.
That's what it should be used for. Yeah. Let's not history repeat itself. This is why this person is wrong. Okay? Now, I don't want to go on the Winston Churchill because I know that screams so many different opinions. Okay? However, Churchill, if you do your history on Churchill, people say he was a good man. People say he won the war and so on. I get that. Okay? However, he felt that the white race were supreme to everyone and everyone was below them. Now, that's like you saying to me, Bobby, you're black, you're beneath me. You can't tell me what to do. I own you. Do you know what I mean? And this is the point, what you said, you're not going to jump on a bandwagon. You're going to find out information. And I hope and pray that people use that smartness not to jump on bandwagon, you know? Because right now on social media, I mean, I've come off it now, but it's a split, you know? Everyone is just saying, oh, they want this, or you can't. And I'm like, why do they want that? Do you know, why are you against it? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like I'm starting to not talk to people because I don't rate their intelligence anymore. Because you wouldn't walk into a door. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't walk into a door. If something was coming your way, you'd duck. So that awareness you have around you, why don't you use it to find out information? And I got interviewed a few weeks back, and they were saying, what can you do? Well, if you wanted a pair of trainers, a pair of football boots, you'd go on the website, say they're Adidas, you'd check if they was in your size, blah, blah. So you probably spend 5-10 minutes shopping online. Why can't you spend that 5-10 minutes Googling about a statue, Googling about slave trade? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how I tackle it, personally, I'd start with the households, the individual, because I had Marvin Bartley, I beg your pardon. And
wow.
And he said something that stuck with me. What you learn in school can be quickly undone when you go home.
Great point.
Like, whoa, you know, you go to school from 8:30, 9 till 3:30, then you go home. And then I thought to myself, well, the amount of times I've left school, like, bag off, going to my friend's house, whatever. Do you know what I mean? It starts with the individual in the household. And when you see it in the household where it's automatic, no, you can't say that. That's wrong. This is why it's wrong. Then in school, when you learn more, you can I know that because my mum told me that. How many times have you been in school and people say, like, oh, you can't do that. My mum says this, blah, blah, and so on. You combat it. Do you know?
Yeah.
So start it in the household. How do we do that? I mean, you could talk about newsletters, leaflets, letters, just free online history training or whatever, stuff like that. Then in the schools, let's change the curriculum. You know, for 1 month, let's not just talk about black people. Make it the whole year. You know, talk about the wars. Talk about who fought in these wars. You know, when I was growing up, it just assumed to me there was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of white males that fought in wars. Well, actually, no, that isn't the case. Do you know what I mean? In America, in the Civil War, masters were sending their slaves to go and fight for their freedom, but knowing that once they won the war, they were coming back. There was no freedom. They were still slaves. Do you know what I mean? So learn, and take some responsibility. That's it, and accountability to learn and know. Because do you know what? You're going to encounter an Asian person, a black person. You're going to a man of color, or a family of color. Now, you're going to have to know where they're coming from if they show hurt or resentness, and you have to be like, do you know what? Show empathy. I understand, because do you know what? I get it. Now, the ignorance about you not wanting to do it, then we're not united. Unless we get united, we can't move forward together. And we need white people in power positions, politicians, to say these things, and then to be like, this is how we're going to make change. And then once members of parliament are represented of the multicultural of their cities and their countries, then I'll put my hand up and say, yes, we're going somewhere. And I think we need people in politicians, people, bosses, managers, owners, store managers, parents, to all take accountability. Be like, okay, do you know what? This is right and this is wrong. This is why this is right and this is why this is wrong. To finish up, Kev, if, say, for example, racism was eradicated, do you still think we'd have problems?
Yeah, I mean, this was actually a question I was going to. I mean, I don't know, and it sounds really bad to say, but I don't know how we. I mean, there's obviously the different things in racism. I think but I don't know how we totally. There's always going to be people. Pretty much always going to be the odd arsehole.
Yeah.
And there's that person is always going to pick on the difference in a person. So even let's say I don't think. I mean, I'm sure black people didn't want it to get to the point where skin colours looked at the same way as hair colour anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's assume in a crazy world where I'm sure you want to, celebrate your cultural history and everything anyway, but let's just pretend. But even if it was still, there's still people being called, a ginger.
Yeah.
There's still people called up. So people will always find a difference, and they're, unless, in however many years down the line when we've all totally integrated and everybody's kind of mixed race, maybe hundreds of years down the line. Until then I don't see how it can be totally
eradicated.
I think what you were saying earlier about really the ramifications of, hate speech and discriminatory language and racist language, all of that. I think when it's treated much more seriously, then obviously we'll be moving in the right direction. But I hope that I'm wrong, but there's always going to be hate in the world, unfortunately, and there's always going to be people who,
that's the truth,
especially being funny in a capitalist society where, not that capitalism's necessarily wrong, but the way that we do not take care of the people at the bottom enough, which means, chaotic home lives, which means, again, us growing up in the area we did.
Yeah.
And all that disadvantage, there's going to be people that have seen things that make them angry and frustrated, and the way they let that out is usually picking on somebody. At school, if you've got a tough home life, there's always going to be that wee bully, and I don't think it's necessarily premeditated, but if you happen to be that person and then you happen to be black, they will pick out the fact that...
of course, yeah. And
I know you're from experience, you know that. So.
Yeah. So, but that's when we have to say punishment has to be more heavier than, if you choose to still be that way, It's going to affect you. You're going to lose your job. You're going to get a criminal record. You're going to go to jail. You're going to get a sentence. Now, people might say like, "Oh, this is a bit harsh," but then so's the person receiving the treatment. So until we, yeah, you're right actually, and I have to agree with you on that. Until we make the punishments more heavier, where it affects the actual individual, For example, do you know what? Something just came into my head right now. Marvin Bartley was racially abused. The guy was found not guilty. But last season, the fan that pushed the right back of Rangers, what's his name? The captain of Rangers.
Oh, Tavernier.
Right, so the fan that came on and pushed him, came on the park, he got 100 days in jail. Wow. But the person that was racially abused, his voice was there, he'd met the charge, but he was still found not guilty. Do you see what I'm saying? So, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, so the punishment has to be. Now, the fan that came on the park pushed someone, okay, cool, you can be like gradual assault, or, GBH, whatever. But he could have said he was drunk. You could have been like, okay, do you know what? You could go into a community service or something, but he spent 100 days in jail. However, you can abuse me for the colour of my skin, and if the judge doesn't see there's sufficient evidence, you walk away. So, so the punishment has to be severe, definitely. On that note, Kev, I'm going to wrap this up. And
I know it's been interesting. I enjoyed that.
Oh, I'm glad. Safe to say there's no beef between me and Kev. And Kev, thanks for coming on the show. And
thanks for having me.
Back on again, okay?
Definitely. Good to see you, mate.
Good, man.